Hey guys, this is your girl Tara with Coaching for Life. I wanted to do a video today on the topic of grief and loss. And it's such an interesting topic because this is one that I'm personally looking into um, here just as of recently. I always try to find different areas of myself to kind of dig deeper into so I can have a better understanding on a personal level of how I'm progressing as I grow in my skill set and my knowledge about working through processes. And then I share those results with clients, and I also share those results on a larger scale, like we're doing today here on YouTube or in my podcast. So, the topic of grief and loss. The reason why this one was so interesting and why it really resonated with me to talk about this today is because I have been reading an amazing book. Not only have I been reading an amazing book, the way that the book came to me and the timing of when the book came to me was really phenomenal. I was at a girlfriend's house there to celebrate the birth of her new child, and we were talking and catching up, and I was asking her about a book that I had loaned to her. At that time, she gave me back the book I had loaned to her, and then she began to tell me about a new book that she was reading and had found it to be very helpful. The name of the book is, see if you can see, Awakening from Grief by John E. Welshons. It's an amazing book, in particular because of the way that it discusses the topic of grief and loss. And when we talk about those words, grief and loss, a lot of times people will think about the loss of a loved one. But grief and loss can not only mean that, but it can also mean so much more. Basically, any situation that you are experiencing in this life that takes you into a place where you feel saddened or grieved or like you've lost a part of yourself qualifies as grief and loss. In this book, Awakening from Grief, it talks about different types of loss. Some of them have to do with people, some of them have to do with personal experiences. And as I was reading this book, I was able to relate this to things from my past, in some cases, early childhood. And I always mention on my podcast that thought process of 0 to 6 years of age. What a very powerful time in our lives that is for each and every one of us because we're so impressionable. Our subconscious mind is still growing and developing, and we haven't formulated very many opinions about this life and our experiences yet. But we are in the process of that. So if you have experienced a very powerful external stimuli during that time period of 0 to 6 years of age, or a memory that is very profoundly locked in your mind, in your subconscious from that age state, you might find that those thoughts and the way that you saw what happened during that time period could actually be affecting your set of beliefs. Then, in turn, when your beliefs begin to form around a topic, then you start to have expressed viewpoints, and then from there, you will have results. So, a lot of times when we're experiencing something in our life that's very difficult, that we seem like we just keep running into it, we're having a hard time working through it, it could be something that's connected to an experience that we had when we were younger that is related to grief or loss. That experience was so profound and it made such an impact on us, we then began to form beliefs around that topic. And then those beliefs became actions, and then those actions created the results that we now see in our life. Whether they be good, bad, indifferent, whatever it may be, those things definitely create results. One passage that I wanted to share with you guys today because I thought this was really powerful and it was very beneficial for me, and I thought maybe it could be helpful for you too. It asked the question in chapter 7 of what is grief? And then a writer, Charles Garfield, is quoted here as stating, grief is the impotent rage of being born into a universe of change. How many times have you experienced change in your life? How many times have all of us experienced change? And as a matter of fact, change is the one thing that we can be sure of that we will experience in this life. So, if you're like most people and change is a hard thing for you, you could be experiencing grief and loss over a change in circumstances that's happening constantly in your life. That could be creating more of that feeling of grief and loss. Here's the thing though, no matter what the situation was, the age that we were experiencing this feeling that created that viewpoint of grief and loss inside of us, here's the one thing. It doesn't really matter what the situation was. If it turns into a situation of grief and loss and we never then process that feeling, that emotion, then those things just continue to get pushed down, 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 down. And then the next time you experience grief or loss in any form, it may begin to feel like there's just a volcano erupting inside of you. Almost as if the emotions from every situation where you've experienced grief and loss starts to return to the surface each time there's external stimuli regarding that particular topic. This is why it's so important that as we experience these emotions, that we begin to learn how to process these things such that they don't become overwhelming, create more emotional distress for us every time we experience change, and later can begin to create physical results that are displeasing because we're pushing down so much grief or loss, which then can turn into anxiety, stress, depression, a whole list of disorders that we really don't want to be bothered with because it's not our true nature. Our true nature is to be joyful and to find the good things in life and to smile. So if that's something that you're interested in, learning those processes on how to work through grief and loss will help you to be able to work through those feelings when something happens that is uncomfortable or displeasing or puts you in that mindset. Now, as I read further, it states that everyone has grief. It's an inescapable reality of human existence. We are not abnormal or weak because we experience grief. We are merely touching the depths of the human experience, the chasm between what we wanted and what is. From the first moment we don't get exactly what we want from the world, we experience grief. It may come as early as the moment we leave the womb, or it may come in the womb. As infants, we react with tears, sometimes in fear, sometimes in pain, sometimes in rage. As we get older, we learn to control our reactions. We become adept at concealing the tears, pain, and anger from ourselves and from others. But they are always there, lurking just beneath the surface. And whenever we are faced with a cataclysmic loss in our lives, the accumulated grief of our entire lifetime rises up to the surface. At moments of profound loss, our defenses crumble. We no longer have the strength to stuff our feelings down. Sometimes, just seeing another's tears is sufficient to trigger our own. Many of us react to grief by distracting ourselves, or we seek to gain economic, political, or social power to have the illusion of being able to control our internal and external environments. For many of us, when other distractions don't work, we numb ourselves with alcohol and drugs. Our grief can be our undoing. It can turn us off to ourselves, to our lives, and to our world. if we can meet our grief with courage and awareness, it can be the key that unlocks our hearts and forces us into a profound new experience of life and love. So, what I really took out of this little section of the book here, and the entire book is amazing once again, Awakening from Grief by John E. Welshons, a phenomenal book. Um, and he also has some other books as well too. But if you have been feeling stuck, like every time there's a shift, something happens at work, somebody aggravates you, you're easily triggered with impatience, um, I don't know, you get upset really easy. These could all be indications that something is going on the inside that has not been addressed. What I found in my case was that it was connected to grief and loss. And as I stated before, it wasn't necessarily always about the loss of a loved one. Sometimes it was connected to a feeling of grief or loss that was related to an unpleasant situation, something that happened to me that was traumatic. And then I just internalized that, created beliefs, and then started to have a viewpoint on this life based on that experience. So if those are things that you've been coping with, maybe perhaps it's time to take a look into whether grief and loss might be a key area in your life that could help you unravel some of the things that you're constantly feeling like you're just stuck in a cycle, or behavioral patterns that aren't getting you where you want to be, but rather are keeping you stuck. So that's all I had for you today. Definitely let me know what you think about this topic. Please leave a comment below and let everybody know if there are processes or things that you're doing that help you to cope with grief and loss. My recommendation in this video is the first thing to any issue is identifying that it is an issue. So if you've looked at all the other areas and you can't find any answer, maybe look into the area of grief and loss. I hope you guys are having a beautiful day wherever you are. Thank you for taking time out with me. I feel very privileged and honored to be here with you and to share these videos with you. If you enjoy what we're doing here on the Coaching for Life YouTube channel, like, share, subscribe, and definitely check out some of our other social media too. We'll see you next time for the next video. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.